Here's a 1600-word cinematic-style article written for YouTube narration in a continuous, storytelling flow, without headings. It's crafted in a heartwarming, emotional tone, perfect for your channel. In the world of the wealthy, there are often walls that money cannot tear down. Behind the polished doors of mansions, lives can be filled with loneliness, misunderstandings, and silent battles that no one from the outside can see. That was the case for Daniel Carter, a millionaire whose name was known in business circles across the city. To the public, he was a powerful man who had built an empire, a man who had everything anyone could ever want. But what most didn't know was that he was also a widower, a father of three little lives that had turned his world upside down in ways he never imagined. They were triplets, beautiful, mischievous, demanding, and impossible to handle. From the day his wife passed away during childbirth, Daniel had been both father and mother to them, or at least he had tried. But the truth was, he couldn't keep up. His empire demanded his time, and his children demanded his heart. And every nanny, every caretaker he had hired, had run out of his home within days, some within hours. They said the children were too wild, too uncontrollable. They cried endlessly, refused to listen, and had a way of pushing away anyone who tried to replace the mother they never knew. Daniel's mansion, though filled with luxury, had become a place of noise, chaos, and restless hearts. The staff did their best, but they couldn't replace the love the triplets craved. And Daniel, though he loved his children deeply, he didn't know how to give them what they needed. He thought money could solve everything. But day by day, nanny after nanny, he realized that not everything could be bought. What he needed wasn't another professional on paper. What his children needed wasn't someone with years of childcare training. They needed love. Pure, patient, unshakable love. It was on a rainy Tuesday morning that fate decided to knock on Daniel Carter's door. Literally, standing there was a young woman, drenched from the storm, clutching a worn-out folder of papers in her hand. Her name was Emily. She wasn't there because of an agency or an advertisement. She had come on her own, desperate, searching for work. A single mother herself, Emily knew the weight of survival, the fight of each day, and the depth of a child's need. Her own little boy was just 3 years old, a bundle of laughter and innocence who was her whole world. She hadn't planned to knock on the door of a mansion that morning. She had been walking the neighborhood, going door to door, offering housekeeping or babysitting services to anyone who would listen. She was running out of options, her bills piling up, her fridge nearly empty. When she stood before the massive iron gates of the Carter estate, she almost turned away. People like him didn't hire people like her. But something inside pushed her forward. And so she knocked. The butler opened the door and looked at her with suspicion, but before he could send her away, the sound of 3 voices rang through the hall. The triplets. They were screaming again, running wildly, one of them with a crayon dragging a line across the marble wall. Daniel's tired voice followed, filled with exhaustion and helplessness. Emily's heart softened instantly. She didn't see spoiled children. She saw children who missed a mother. Children like her son, only lonelier. She asked to speak with Mr. Carter. At first, Daniel refused. He didn't have time for strangers showing up at his doorstep. But something in Emily's voice when she said, "Please, I know what it's like to be a single parent. I know what it's like when the world feels too heavy," made him pause. He allowed her inside. The interview wasn't like any Daniel had ever conducted. He was used to polished resumes, firm handshakes, and people eager to impress. Emily had none of that. She sat nervously, her clothes still damp from the rain, her voice trembling as she explained that she had no degrees in childcare, no list of elite references. All she had was experience, the kind that life forces upon you when you raise a child alone with nothing but determination and love. Daniel almost dismissed her. But before he could, one of the triplets wandered into the room, dragging a stuffed animal, tears still streaking down her cheeks from a tantrum minutes earlier. Emily didn't hesitate. She got down on her knees, looked the child in the eye, and whispered softly, "Hey, it's okay. Do you want to show me your favorite toy?" Her voice was gentle but firm, her touch warm yet respectful. The little girl blinked at her, sniffled, and then, to Daniel's astonishment, climbed into Emily's lap. It was the first time he had seen one of his children calm down so quickly with a stranger. And in that moment, Daniel knew. He didn't know why, but something told him Emily was different. From that day on, Emily's life and the Carters became intertwined. At first, the children tested her just like they had tested everyone else. They hid her keys, poured juice on the floor, and screamed to see if she would give up like the others. But Emily didn't. She didn't shout, didn't walk away, didn't lose patience. She stood firm, with kindness in her voice and love in her eyes. When they threw tantrums, she held them until the storm passed. When they refused to sleep, she sang to them, her voice carrying the lullabies she once sang to her own son. Slowly, day by day, the triplets' walls began to fall. Daniel watched it all in silence at first, too afraid to hope. But soon, even he couldn't deny the change. The house that once echoed with endless cries now filled with laughter. The children started eating without protest, sleeping through the night, even drawing pictures where Emily stood at their side. They called her Miss Emily at first, but soon, without meaning to, they began calling her Mommy. The word slipped out one evening when one of the little boys scraped his knee. He ran to her, tears streaming down, shouting, "Mommy, help." Daniel froze when he heard it, his heart aching and healing at the same time. Emily was embarrassed, apologizing quickly. But Daniel only looked at her, his eyes softer than she had ever seen. He realized something then, that Emily wasn't just a caretaker. She was what his children had been missing all along. For Emily, working for Daniel was more than just a job. It was a chance to give love where love was desperately needed. And yet, she couldn't ignore her own growing feelings. The more time she spent with the children, the more she saw another side of Daniel. Beneath his sharp business suits and stern expressions was a man who carried guilt like a shadow. He blamed himself for his wife's death, for not being enough for his children, for failing where love mattered most. Emily's presence slowly chipped away at that guilt. She showed him that being a parent wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. It was about showing up every day, even when you felt you couldn't. And as days turned to weeks, weeks into months, Daniel found himself drawn to Emily not just for the way she cared for his children, but for the way she cared for him without even realizing it. She asked how his day was. She reminded him to eat when he skipped meals. She listened when he spoke, not as a millionaire, but as a man who was still learning how to heal. Their bond grew quietly, tenderly. It wasn't a fairy tale of grand gestures or sweeping romance. It was built in the small moments, sharing coffee in the morning before the children woke, watching the triplets play in the garden together, exchanging tired smiles at the end of long days. Somewhere in those moments, love took root. Emily never intended to change Daniel's life. She only wanted a job to support her son. But in giving her heart freely, she gave him something he hadn't dared to believe he could have again: family. Not the broken version he thought he had been left with, but a new, beautiful kind of family, stitched together not by perfection, but by love, patience, and second chances. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of gold, Daniel watched Emily chase the children across the lawn, her laughter mixing with theirs. His heart swelled with a feeling he had buried for too long. He walked toward her, and when their eyes met, no words were needed. Everything was there in the silence between them. Gratitude, hope, love. Emily had knocked on his door looking for work. What she found was a home she didn't know she was searching for. And Daniel, who thought no nanny could survive a single day with his triplets, discovered that sometimes the right person isn't the one with the longest resume, but the one with the biggest heart. In the end, it wasn't wealth or status that saved his family. It was a young single mom, brave enough to knock on a stranger's door, and strong enough to love children who weren't her own as if they were always meant to be hers. And that love transformed not just the lives of 3 little ones, but the heart of a man who finally understood that even the most broken beginnings can lead to the most beautiful endings. Would you like me to expand this further into a multi-chapter flow, like a mini-series, so you can split it into multiple YouTube videos, or do you want me to keep it as a single continuous 1600-word narration piece?